Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe, and in today's video, we're going to be analyzing the nonverbal communication of Ariana and Cynthia during the Wicked press tours and interviews. More on that in just a second. Let's go ahead and roll that intro first. When you study people for a living, you realize something rather interesting. Confidence is almost never loud. Sometimes it's a look, maybe a tone, or even the scent that enters a room before you do. I've been exploring a few new fragrances this holiday season, and 4 of them really stood out to me. The first one, Cannabis, is this green woods, peppery scent that softens into herbal florals and warm, earthy woods at the end there. It's chill and a bit smoky, natural, perfect for days when I'm feeling a little bit more grounded. Next is Nightscape, which leans a bit more mysterious, I suppose you could call it. It has clean green citrus up top, a soft floral woody heart, and a warm leather patchouli kind of musk base. It gives that subtle, introspective, urban night sort of vibe. On a lighter note, Sahara Song opens fresh and breezy with mint tea and coconut. Then it moves into soft florals and then settles into a cedarwood and musk. Wrapping up there. It's cozy, modern, and easygoing. Imagine something like a sunlit desert tea house, something along those lines. Lastly, the Lait de Faume is bright citrus and pepper at first, and then calming earthy woods after that. It's clean, fresh, and natural, making it a great unisex scent with a confident, understated feel. As someone who was born without the ability to smell, I have been testing all of these with much less anxiety thanks to help from my friends over at Scentbird, the sponsors of this video. They let you explore a massive collection of luxury fragrances without committing to a full bottle, and each vial still lasts about 30 days or so. So if you would like to try some for yourself, or maybe purchase some for somebody that you care about in your life, click the link in the description of this video or scan the QR code that has been up here on the screen for a second, and you can get 55% off your first month with my code OBSERVE2. Your first fragrance will be just $8.97 for the full 30-day vial, and then the following month is only $17.95. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video, and now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Alright, so the movie adaptation of the Wicked musical exploded onto the scene in 2024 and left people positively raving. According to reviews, the movie invites the audience to reflect on tangible human issues: discrimination, systemic abuse, moral complicity, and the power of empathy. Elphaba's arc challenges viewers to ask the question of who defines evil, who gets to write the story, and how many witches in our world have been condemned by fear or prejudice or propaganda rather than actual wrongdoing. Despite not being too big of a fan of the musical genre myself, I feel that I have to concede with the general public's opinion. The film it's good. I appreciate the message, the singing is, arguably excellent, and the plot pulls you along rather well. If you are a fan of musicals and somehow you haven't seen this specific production or its sequel that has also already aired, I can happily suggest that you go and do so. Speaking of production and sequels, many people were rather confused about why and how the second installment was released so quickly in 2025 after the first production aired a mere year or so earlier. According to director John Chu, during production, they recorded the footage for both films simultaneously and then decided to release them as 2 separate pieces rather than one extended movie. Historically speaking, this style of production can take a pretty intense toll on both cast and crew, and viewers have been quick to notice some possible physical indicators of the stress appearing amongst some of the cast of the movie, specifically with Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, and Michelle Yeoh. Before and after photos have been circulating around the internet as the public's concern around their health and weight has spiked recently. This has been accompanied by countless rumors and theories surrounding the set conditions themselves that may have led to some of these perceived changes. Beyond the questions around the filming process, the public's attention has been even further captured by the arguably odd behavior of Ariana and Cynthia during press interviews for the first film. Concerns of the duo displaying possibly problematic behavioral patterns towards each other have surfaced across the internet, and that has led to quite a few of y'all asking me to make a video on this situation. As a disclaimer, what I'll be saying in this video is only my opinion. While I have had training in high-stakes communication and credibility analysis, as well as over a decade in the field of nonverbal communication analysis and coaching, I'm not a psychologist nor a therapist, so I will attempt to address the concerns within my field of expertise as best as I can. Some of the issues people have raised deal with sensitive topics such as EDs, trauma, and codependency, so I will tread as gently as possible when discussing those portions of this video. Regardless, with all of the disclaimers and seriousness out of the way, I think it's time to take a look at these interview clips, talk about what we can see non-verbally, and attempt to add some clarity to what everybody kinda has been noticing recently. We'll start off with this first clip of Ariana and Cynthia participating in an interview with their co-star Jonathan Bailey to establish a non-verbal behavioral baseline while the duo is in the presence of a third party, and then we'll go from there. Let's go ahead and dive in.
Hi Vogue, this is Ariana Grande.
I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And I'm Jonathan Bailey, and this is Off the Cuff.
Round one, icebreakers.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Cynthia,
Yeah.
where would you like to take me on holiday?
Iceland came to mind.
Wow.
We're going to the fjords.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's sort of the most unlikely place that you could have the most beautiful sort of relaxing holiday, and I think you need to relax.
Thank you.
And there's some really great spas there. Ariana, you're sitting with two iconic Brits. Give us your best accent.
Oh no.
Yeah, go on. You're good at accents.
By all means then, come along, sir.
Very good. That's like late 1800s.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's what came to me.
I know, but you do a really good me as well.
Well, I try.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, very good. You just doing a Hermione Granger.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Well, it depends on her mood. Depends on what the circumstances.
It's wrong. You're talking
It's
to
Ron.
You've got dirt on your nose, did you know? Just there.
That's really
That's
good.
really good. That is really good.
I mean, they
that
were all
actually was
great,
really
but-
good.
Boo, boo, boo.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause here. There's still some more to be able to go through. So some things that I want to make note of about the general behavior of the trio here. As far as their positioning, their posturing goes, something that you can kind of rely on occasion in nonverbal communication reading. This one is not a universal law. This would be something that you would want to be able to observe in context as much as possible before relying on this tell. But the leaning and the legs crossing facet of things pops out to me because initially when Cynthia and Jonathan are interacting there, or John, I'll call him John. I think they call him John, Johnny, things like that. I'll call him John. When Cynthia and John are interacting, they're both leaning away from each other, creating some distance between the two. And their legs are crossed in such a way that creates a barrier. Now, both of those things can push towards this feeling of perhaps an emotional separation. If a person's not feeling as comfortable with somebody, you can see that sort of distance creation and also blocking off using portions of their body. It can also be arms folded, things like that. That can be an indicator that they're not feeling emotionally connected to that person, which would kind of make sense if Ariana and Cynthia have kind of developed this interesting little duo energy that they've got going on there, and maybe Jonathan's not a part of it. So I was paying attention to that. However, as you see, as the footage rolls on here, that positioning, as far as the leaning at least, shifts depending on who's being spoken to. And to me, then that indicates that this isn't one of those, we need to create space. I'm not feeling comfortable with this person or emotionally comfortable or vulnerable with this person, so I'm creating a blockage, things like that. I don't think it's indicating that. I do think that it is indicating a desire to gain a better perspective view of the person that's being spoken to by specifically Cynthia in this instance. So paying attention to how Cynthia moves gives a little bit more understanding about the nonverbal socials that they're working with there. So I wanted to make note of that. Another thing that I wanted to also call some attention to is Ariana's voice. And many people have talked about this, and there's the internet is wrought with debate around this. In these recent interviews, Ariana has seemingly adapted a much higher pitch, airy tone to her voice. Now, there are theories everywhere about this. Some people are saying that she's doing so to preserve her voice for singing or acting, things like that. The other options that people have been spitting out around this that I also find fascinating is that it could be a subtle manipulation point from Ariana during problematic times. She has, from what I've heard, pushed this narrative of innocence and almost more of infantilizing herself to maybe navigate around some negative backlash, something along those lines. Again, I wasn't able to confirm or deny that either as being a direct correlation. She has been involved in some scandals here and there in the past, not the least of which was a home-wrecking scandal that had come out centered around another cast member. And so maybe it's difficult to say. And then what is also fascinating to me is that this voice that she kind of puts on, which you hear a little bit at the beginning of this airiness and high-pitched, smaller voice tends to actually surface more so when it's just her and Cynthia together, which that, to me, raises some questions about their social interaction. What is the dynamic between those two that might pop up? It does almost feel a little bit more performative, but this is just something that I feel is more conjecture, and I do kind of feel that as well. I understand where that's coming from, but non-verbally speaking, there's not really too much to be able to go off of with that. Regardless, we've got some more of this to be able to go through of them interacting with Jonathan present as well, so we can have that contrast between behaviors of them both as opposed to when they're just by themselves. Let's go.
Ariana to Jonathan.
Yes.
If someone narrated your life, who would you want to do it?
Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
Jonathan to Cynthia. We don't have to say that bit.
Wait.
Jonathan to Cynthia.
I like
Yeah.
it. It's clear.
Jonathan to Cynthia. Okay, what is the coolest trick you can do?
I can actually put my hands in prayer position behind my back. This is very silly.
I love this.
Wow.
That is incredible. There's going to be the sound of
That's
people,
great.
like 1,000 people trying to do that.
Yeah.
I tried. My arms do not bend that way. I could do that behind my back. There's no possible way for me to do that. If you can also hold your hands in prayer position behind your back like that, let me know in the comments, because that's not going to happen. Regardless, now what we're seeing non-verbally from all of them is none of them seem to be standoffish towards each other. They're all laughing, they're all in tune with each other. You can kind of feel that mirroring, that non-verbal mirroring happening as all of their energy seems to match. They're all composed, they're having a good time, they're interacting, and they're comfortable while interacting with each other. Now, the reason that that's important to make note of is because it lets us know how Ariana and Cynthia can behave while comfortable in the presence of somebody else that they are comfortable with, and it helps draw that contrast between this instance that we're dealing with here and the other ones that we'll deal with afterwards. So now we're moved on to the next interview. Now we're going to start getting into weird territory. While going through these interviews, a number of things stuck out to me. First, the behavior, how Ariana and Cynthia both portray themselves during these interviews where it's just the two of them, it rings very, very similar to how people in the capital of the Hunger Games behave. This very overt, hyper-dramatized, extreme reaction. Everything's emotionally dialed up to 2,000, and none of it's done genuinely so. It feels like it's all done through this facade. So that's one aspect that I feel regularly going throughout this, which you'll probably pick up as well. And then another aspect that ends up sticking out to me is how they handle individual emotional stability while around each other, which is an important facet to be able to call note to, because this is the portion that starts to play into some of people's concerns about a codependent relationship developing. And this plays out in a number of different ways. Codependency is a nuanced beast, to be sure, but that interdependency is prominent everywhere, regardless of how it plays out. And so people are seeing that come up there, and I'll talk about that as we see that come around here. And then we'll also talk about some of the manipulators, not like manipulating, not like you're trying to deceive somebody, but physical manipulators, non-verbal manipulators. We'll talk about some of the weirdness around that as we go on as well, and hopefully understand kind of what that may or may not mean. regardless, let's get into these interviews of just the duo. And yeah.
How has Elphaba changed you for good?
I think that before I came to this, I knew that vulnerability was one of my strong suits, but I just didn't. I didn't get to show it as much. I didn't get to share it as much. Why am I feeling emotional about it?
Because
What I find interesting about this, across interviews and other people's opinions centered around Cynthia, that narrative of vulnerability has not actually been consistent. There are some interviews where she says that she is not emotionally available as much, or is perceived as not emotionally available as much, and she doesn't feel that perhaps, and that it's something that she has to work on. And then in other interviews, she's saying that it is a strength of hers. And then there are other people that say that, no, she's just this strong, frank, straightforward kind of person. And then other people say that she's not that, and that she's much more of like the emotionally vulnerable, wears her feelings on her sleeves, touchy-feely kind of person. And so there's a lot of back and forth on the internet about how Cynthia behaves in and of herself. I have found both to be tentatively true. It seems as though in areas where she is not as familiar with people that she's around, she has a tendency to throw up a couple of walls, and that's where that I'm composed, I am in charge, that calm, collected, more that energy, that demeanor, that's where that starts to show up. And it's in the presence of people that she finds safe or camaraderie in, that the other sides, the more affectionate sides, the more emotionally fluid side comes out and starts to surface more prevalently. And this also holds true from what I've seen with the interviews with her and Ariana, as opposed to her, Ariana, and another cast member. So as we saw how they all interacted with Bailey in the room, and now we're going to see how they act without Bailey in the room, and the social energy is different. It changes. You can very much feel that shift between the two of them. And to me, at the surface level, it doesn't seem too problematic. Some people are more comfortable around other people. That's natural. What is more problematic is their own individual inability to seemingly navigate and maintain a level of composure around their own emotions. They need the other person to be there, to touch, to do, to interject, to take over. And that is where codependency seems to come in. Realistically speaking, Cynthia doesn't or shouldn't need Ariana to be able to offer support, do anything like that. That's not something that is Ariana's responsibility. That's exclusively Cynthia's. It's very important to have support. Absolutely. It is also very important to maintain individual capabilities without blending those edges to where you then suddenly need another person to behave a certain way. And that's where I feel like they are straying rather prominently in areas. But there are other aspects as well.
because it's true. And it's a lot.
So playing Elphaba has given me the chance to put that on the outside. I think people often assume that I'm strong. I think people assume that my feelings aren't at the surface. And I think Elphaba's allowed me to really show that I'm a person and I feel and I have feelings and I can share them.
Mm-hmm. Then if you need to cry right now, you cry.
Yeah. And
That's one of those areas where obviously Cynthia's saying, some people perceive me as this, I feel this. Again, we discussed that. Now, Ariana's coming in. You could see that there's hand-holding in there, and you could see manipulators coming in there. Those manipulators, when they're done to oneself, they're called self-soothing gestures. And the reason is that it helps calm your limbic system down. If you're feeling anxious, agitated on any level, you'll start to see self-soothing gestures come out in a multitude of different ways. You could see it for them with Ariana doing some fairly neurotic stroking of Cynthia's hand. That is not unheard of in their interviews. So that, to me, lets me know that Ariana is trying to, and the verbals follow up with that, Ariana is trying to take the role of an emotional navigator for Cynthia. Cynthia's experiencing an emotion, and now Ariana needs to step in and give guidance. Cool, that can be nice. That can be perfectly fine. However, it can stray into, if Cynthia becomes reliant on that, codependency. Cynthia can't rely on Ariana to be there for every instance of emotional power, empowerment, or exploration, or anything along those lines, but she can appreciate Ariana's support. And so for me, as I was watching through all of these different interviews, that's what I was left with, of this battle in my head of, is this friendship? Is this just somebody supporting another friend? Or is this codependency, where a friend was trying to, and likely was initially doing something out of the goodness and kindness of their heart? It was a benevolent move. Has it shifted around to something that's not healthy for either of them? I'm worried that that might be the case, and we'll continue to see that as that goes through here. But this is going to be, as this continues to play out, this little portion of the interview, you'll also see kind of from like Ariana's side, we're putting on a show for the camera and the person that we're talking to, and it raises red flags. Let's watch.
And someone said to me once that the green was the thing that I would love the most about Alphabet, that I would want to stay green. But actually, being green, yes, I loved playing this character. But every time I took the makeup off, I loved who I was even more. So I've come away feeling really beautiful.
I think that's good. I can appreciate the emotional vulnerability that Cynthia's having here. When it's in context of every other interview that they've had where there's a lot of this seemingly emotional vulnerability, it starts to stray into this realm of I'm not sure that this is emotional vulnerability so much so as this is a duo that has no control over their emotional state. Being in touch with your emotions, perfect, grand, do that. Make sure that you're in touch with those, because if you don't, that leads to a whole myriad of issues. When you don't have the ability to consciously control those emotional states and how you behave and interact with the world around you, that can be a very problematic behavior pattern. And it can also end up being problematic and difficult for the people around you as you place your emotional well-being in the hands of everybody else around you because you don't have the ability to hold them yourself. There's the possibility of this happening between these two, as we'll continue to see here. But now let's watch Ariana wrap this up weirdly.
You fucking are.
Yeah.
Holy shit. You know?
Like that there, what? Nobody was this. Why do that there? I don't think that the interviewer was questioning how great of a person Cynthia was, but Ariana decides to go into what is obviously a stilted, performed display here. You obviously are, and then looks, nobody behaves like that as a human being. That's a play act. And so why is she play acting this? Why is this being brought up in this way? And why is she pushing that specific play act to it as far as proving a point and things like that? Now, what this has raised the question of for many is that this weird energy that these two have been presenting in their interviews is all centered around promotion of the film. That within the film, there's a bond between the characters, and then outside of the film, maybe it's supposed to be in promotion of that. And that's why we're seeing this faked, forced, performed aspect of these interviews and sessions that they're going through here. Possibly. It does kind of fill in some of the blanks fairly decently that it would be performed, and this would not be the first time that unique publicity stunts have been used in promotion of films. So there is that possibility. Now, some other, I guess, bones that people have picked with this is why do Ariana and Cynthia insist on bringing in this emotional aspect into every single interview, seeming that it's most interviews that they're both crying, and people are not sure. We have the general public have watched probably billions of movie interviews and press around a movie release, and at least to me, and apparently to many people on the internet, there has never been a series of press touring around a movie release like this that is so littered with the cast crying on screen. And it's obviously thrown the internet into a tizzy. Some people are like, it's beautiful. It's emotionally vulnerable. Love seeing that. That's super fantastic. Other people are like, this is your job. We want you to be promoting of the film. This isn't a therapy session that we get to sit in on. If y'all want to be vulnerable like that, please feel free to do that as much as you like, even in the public eye. But when it's at the point of when you're promoting a film and trying to get people engaged in that, is that the best time to do it? Maybe not. So there are two sides to that coin, and I think you'll kind of have to decide which of those two parties you kind of feel a part of. If they don't have those social boundaries around this sort of behavior in this public of a setting where it's supposed to be professional, that's where people are concerned. What happens when it's not like this? It's difficult to say, but we do have more to go through.
Well, you
You're
have been
amazing.
the light
You're
of the
amazing.
day. You are
truly-
such a gift.
You brought such light into the room. Thank you very much.
We appreciate
for coming into
you.
this room today. We needed to come in.
Yeah.
For me, that little area there that I have difficulty not having a knee-jerk reaction to that. Growing up the way that I did, I saw a lot of this overt, ooey gooey, affectionate language used very manipulatively. It was used very, oh, you're just the best. And then the people would be very two-faced about it. And I just pick up that same tone from them. I have to ask the question at that point, what do they act like when it's not there? When they're not interacting with a person, when they're not trying to be on a screen, something along those lines. Are they really that ooey gooey, or is that a front? For me, I just have questions if this is yet another aspect of a display that they're putting on for the show of things, for the promotion of the film in a weird way. Because frankly speaking, due to their activities, everybody online is talking about Wicked. And it's not even necessarily about the film, which is too bad. The film itself is pretty good. Like I said, even though I don't like musicals, pretty good. Go watch. But everybody's now talking about the people behind the film. And to me, even though it could have initially started as a promotional thing, I feel like it's backfired some into where people are now more interested in what's going on with the people themselves rather than the actual film itself, which is not the purpose of the talent doing the press tour. If the talent is doing the press tour, the sole purpose of that is to promote their film. That's what they're under contract for. They're legally bound to promote their film. And that's not what people are talking about from their press. I see where the internet is filled with questions and concerns, and I feel at times fairly valid concerns. We're switching now into another interview where we get to see even more interesting tactics used.
Ladies, thank you so much for your time. I want to go way back to the beginning. I want you to imagine you could sit in a movie theater. You're sitting next to Margaret.
I'm going to actually pause this. This question is not a crazy question. This question that this man is about to ask is a very straightforward, asked everywhere question anytime that there is either a movie remake or there is a movie based off of a human being that it existed in real life. This question comes up. The question he's going to ask is, if you were with the original talent, in this case, the original talent for these different roles that you get to play, what would you ask them? Again, it's a good question, but not an abnormal one. That's just a very straightforward, somebody did this role before and now you did it. Well, what would what would the interaction be like? Great. No duh question. The way that they handle this is, well, let's watch.
You're sitting next to Margaret Hamilton. You're sitting next to
Oh
Billy
my
Burke.
gosh.
And you're all watching Wicked together. When it's done, you lean over and go, what'd you think about how I did this? What is the aspect of your performances, of your interpretations of these characters you would love to get their thoughts on?
Oh my goodness. That's
an amazing question.
A good question for sure. An amazing one. Maybe one that merits a sudden manipulator to the suprasternal notch, indicating a level of intense agitation. Agitation, I'm using this as a general term. It's not like agitation as in bad. The term that is often used by other people in the field is arousal, and I just don't enjoy using that, especially here on the internet, because it has the other connotations that go with it. And so I use agitation. This suprasternal notch manipulator comes up regularly when a person is feeling overtly agitated. There's an emotional spike in their cognitive processing. You'll see that come out. It can be with jewelry. It can be with the clothing. It can be without anything there, just in the area. You'll see people touch this area regularly. And it's usually accompanied by some fidgeting. Hers is stationary. And so that's a stationary move, which to me lets me know that this is a conscious move. She's not actually going up here to manipulate anything. It's not something where her limbic system is like, we're firing, we need to calm down here. It's a conscious move, and people have even called this out. This is used commonly like in the South. The way that people put it is the pearl clutchers, that sort of gesture there. That will come up regularly, and it's done intentionally to give that energy that they're trying to promote there of being taken aback or surprised by something along those lines. Something unanticipated happened and oh my goodness kind of thing. That comes out there. Along with that, the verbal portion of it, their response to him asking a fairly straightforward question is like he asked the most mind-bending question known to all of media. And it's not. It's really not. If you've watched one interview of, like I said, a historical document or a historical work, something referencing a normal human being that lived in day-to-day life, or a remake, you're almost guaranteed to hear this question, if not exactly worded that way, very similarly done. So this overt reaction from both of them, to me, pushes me down further of that line of they might be play acting. They might be hamming this all up for the sake of more views and more engagement on social media because it's getting people to talk about it.
Ooh.
This idea of we may not be changed for the better, but this person has changed us for the rest of our lives. In what ways the person sitting next to you changed you for good?
Gosh,
Oh,
you
man.
are very good. You are very good.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
He is decently good at asking questions. The questions are centered around the film, gets people talking about it, maybe adds some richness to the characters themselves, something like that. He is not Jesus Christ of interviewers. He's just asking normal questions, but if you watch how these two behave towards those questions, you feel like he's asking universe-altering questions, and he's simply not. And then it immediately, like, you hear Ariana to fly into yet more tears, which I can see on some level. Like I can have empathy for that. Of like, how did your co-star, this person that you worked very closely with, how did they help shape you as a person? That could be an emotionally invoking question. It invokes maybe some raw, vulnerable emotions that might cause you to cry, but it happens so quickly. It crashes into that state. To me, it pushes me down two different avenues. One, play acted, not actually genuine. The reason that I feel that is that the emotional profile for this, it felt like Ariana's just blew into it. There was no build-in. There was no natural onset to that emotion. It just seems as though it just crashed in. That can happen without it being play acted, though. To just suddenly be overtaken by emotion at such a degree, it just indicates that perhaps there's not that level of self-control centered around it, which is, again, okay in individual settings. In a professional setting like this, there are different social cues to function around. Her job here is, again, to promote the film. It's not to have a therapy session with Cynthia here, but that's what we feel like we're kind of sitting in on, is a therapy session between the two of them when they start behaving in this cyclone of emotional states that they're in here. And then also along with that, you see non-verbally, you see Ariana reach out for Cynthia as soon as this question is asked. And it seems as though it's probably done in this energy of, I need some solidarity from you. There's companionship, there's support, camaraderie, something along those lines, which again is okay, unless you start blending the lines between your own individual ability to take care of yourself and maintain your own emotional boundaries with somebody else who should be an individual, and you meet in the middle at that point of codependency. But as I said, there are caveats for it. We've got more to go through.
yeah. I think we found a little piece of ourselves in each other. I think there are little pieces of us that when we got to do this together. When we first started, each of us was missing like a little chunk. And I think we've been able to see in each other a bit of a reflection. And so I think I've gotten a little bit of her softness, and she's got
Her strength.
a little bit of my strength.
Yeah. Truthfully, we're a bunch of crybabies over here.
Okay. I have to appreciate the self-awareness there at the end. We're a bunch of crybabies over here. The people, when they are at least aware of their emotional vulnerability, their tendency to wear their emotions on their sleeves, things like that, that to me tends to push me down that road of, if they're cognizant of it, they're likely able to keep it in check on some level. Because again, as an individual, it's your and only your responsibility to not make your emotional difficulties everybody else's problem, unless it's requested or appropriate for a situation, something along those lines. With that, being cognizant of that emotional vulnerability, that tends to push towards that direction of they can actually have those boundaries set up around them. That seems to fly in the face of the behaviors outside of that. So there's that little quip of self-awareness, and then there's the rest of the behaviors around it that it feels like, I don't know, again, it's pushing me down this lane of, are they play acting this? Are they faking all of this? And if they're not faking all of this, is it something that they are leaning into for the sake of the drama of it? Is it partially faked? And if that's the case, that's kind of manipulative, but so is all of marketing. Marketing in general is just professional manipulation on multiple different levels. So yes, they would be technically manipulating you, but if you're really upset by that, then you should probably not ever be marketed to, because you're being manipulated. Maybe it's a manipulation point. On the darker side, it could be still indicating and supporting this level of codependency. Yeah, we'll talk about some of the other aspects. Like I said, it touches on EDs and stuff like that. We'll talk about that as things go on here.
Cynthia, we didn't touch on this, I don't think, in our discussion, but I've seen this week people are taking the lyrics of Defying Gravity and really holding space with that and feeling power in that. Would you touch on that moment in the film when Elphaba has been banished, and yet she comes into her full power at that moment of the worst time?
Defying Gravity is a song that it seems as though everybody on social media has at least heard of now. It's massive. It was big before when it was just a musical, the on-stage like Broadway musical, and now it's bigger now. Defying Gravity has been played everywhere. It's been covered by countless artists across all genres. There are fan clips made of things like it. Huge, huge song. This interviewer is saying people are taking this song and holding space for that. They're applying it to their lives, which is exactly what the point of the song is that a person will watch and relate to the character and relate to the song and relate it to their own life. That's just part of a movie. Like that's good story writing, right? Characters that a person can relate to. That's good acting. Be an actor, an actress, a talent that makes that character more tangible, again, so the audience can relate to it. That's the whole goal.
I didn't know that was happening.
I've seen it, yeah.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I call bullshit. There is no conceivable universe in which the talent of the musical itself didn't guess that one of the biggest songs, if not the biggest song of the first movie, was being related to by people, by the audiences, by the fans. Like, absolutely not. She knew, 100%. And so with that, this pushes me even further down that line of like, is this just an act? Are they just play acting here? There are so many psychological hoops you have to jump through to make that fit. That maybe she was involved in all of the production and saw no media of it. She didn't see the showing of it. She hasn't seen commercials. She hasn't seen reviews. She just fully detached from the internet. She hasn't had a single other interview. Nobody has tweeted at her. Nobody has brought it up in her personal life. She filmed this movie and then moved to Mars and turned off her cell phone. Like that's kind of the realm in which that response of, I had no idea that people were liking the music in the musical. That's kind of how you have to go for that. On top of that, we're seeing, again, the same overt manipulator that she used prior that doesn't match up with the genuine nonverbal display that it is kind of play acting off of. It's intentional. I'm so taken aback by this very straightforward in the media thing. And this isn't Cynthia's first rodeo in the media. She's been in other things as well. So it's not like she has never been in a movie and this is the first time that she's ever being asked questions about something that she performed in. So that pushes me down the line of, if this is a professional who has done this at least once in the past, this is being hammed up. That question is not groundbreaking. It's not mind altering in the same way of, there was a person who played this before. Would you like to interact? And if you could, what would you say? Not mind altering and not groundbreaking or anything like that, but treated as such, which pushes me to believe this is fake. This is faked. They're putting on a show. Now we're going to watch Ariana do something just absolutely fascinating with Cynthia's hand.
I didn't know that was happening.
I've seen it on a couple posts. I don't know how widespread, but I am in queer media, so that's my,
That's really cool.
Yeah, but yeah, it's happening.
All right. The finger grab has gone everywhere. It's such a strange thing, but realistically speaking, pretty innocent, neither here nor there, just kind of a little silly and weird and quirky to grab and fondle a person's finger like that. And Ariana has talked about it. She was like, I don't even know what I was doing there. And then that was, I think in that interview, she also talks about how she transfers a lot of energy through her hands, so she likes to touch and feel and squeeze and do things like that. I understand that, but at very least, it's weird to watch. But it's so all over the internet that I had to include it in this video because I feel like it would have been hollow and incomplete without it. And now we'll hear Cynthia honestly give a fairly good verbal response after her overt reaction of, I never conceived of somebody appreciating this song and relating it to their own life.
I think that it's really important for her in that moment to not allow the things that have hurt her, that have stripped her of her humanity, to keep her down. That she does defy gravity, that the possibilities for her at that point, that she decides that they are endless, that it is within her power to change things, that she chooses flight as opposed to staying tethered to the ground. I think that that's something that we can all learn, that we don't have to be tethered, that we can actually fly, that we can change things, that we can allow the things that make us special to really make us elevate, you know? Yeah.
All right. It's a solid answer to a pretty common generic question, and it feels like there was a certain weird little bit there in the middle where they were like, oh, let's be hyper emotional in regards to this before answering it like the professionals that we are. Is it play acted? I don't know. It's difficult to say. I have some theories here, which we'll talk about after this next clip. This next clip, it raised its own specific question and highlighted a specific pattern. Yeah, we'll cover it in a second. Let's watch the clip.
If you had to describe each other's aura, what color would it be?
That's a nice question. An aura.
Yellow.
For me?
Sunshine. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And also, I think there's also purple.
That was very good. I see like a ciel blue, like aqua.
Wow,
and
I'm so moved by that response.
So specific,
This
isn't
is
it?
so-
Sorry, it's very specific. And
And
like sunset orange.
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yours is pink.
It's lovely. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is actually.
We love you very much.
That's
This was
lovely.
really fun.
So there was that. That was just a fascinating display from both of them in general. And what this clip specifically highlighted to me is that they are showing a large number of the physical indicators of people on MDMA, which is an upper. It's a drug, ecstasy, Molly, something along those lines. For those of you that don't know what to kind of look out for, is there's going to be one of the physiological indicators of it is their eyes will dilate. It's difficult to tell with both Ariana and Cynthia because they both have darker brown eyes, so it's difficult to see the dilation. It seems as though Ariana's might be lightly dilated from that close-up that we're able to see there, but that's neither here nor there. Eye dilation has a myriad of causations around it. Other things are a tendency to be more touchy-feely. You want to touch things more. You become more hyper-affectionate. You have a tendency to clench your jaw, maybe have some fidgeting behaviors, foot tappings, things like that. It's even been talked about in circles of being like the empathy kind of drug. It increases your empathy. It floods your brain with dopamine and serotonin. And it makes it to where everybody is like your best friend. It's described as an upper because it provides that boost of more or less everything. And they seem to be displaying, at least in portions, evidence of MDMA usage. I don't know that for sure. There are so many other things that go into that. It is simply a pattern that I did pick up on, that they have some tendencies in their nonverbal displays that line up with the indicators of somebody who is on an upper like MDMA. And if that were the case, if these two regularly use MDMA, it could actually push towards this sort of behavior all the way around. It could have been even something that they maybe approached to try to build a level of interconnectivity for the sake of the roles. I'm not sure. I see that pattern in there. Something else that regular consumption of many drugs, but MDMA can cause, is a drop in weight, as it messes with your appetite. Your drive for food and sustenance it gets a little weird on MDMA. So if they are regularly taking that, it would not be outside of the physical possibility for them to lose weight, which that's where a lot of people have been commenting a lot. Now, I didn't want my video to focus on their weight because I don't know. I myself have had issues with EDs in the past and still do to this day. People that are very close to me have issues with it. And so I wanted to walk carefully in that, especially in regards to just talking about body image and things like that. It is a pattern that some of the people on the cast seem to have lost weight throughout the production. People have been tossing around a whole slew of reasonings for that, which I do not feel qualified to add any what I would feel usable or useful information for you to have there. It does raise some concerns, though, for the younger audiences that are watching this, that certain lifestyles, behavior patterns, things like that are role model-esque, that it should be strived for. Because realistically speaking, the optimal thing for everybody to strive for is just to be healthy, just like take care of yourself, take care of your body, do the best that you can with what you have given to you. And, just take care of yourself. That's the best kind of advice that you can really have in regards to that. And people are concerned that the emaciation of the cast is indicative of perhaps some more sinister psychological aspects going on. And normalizing that could be problematic to the younger generations watching and taking in this sort of content. So I understand where a lot of people are asking me to have more to say about that, but I don't have anything that I can add of value, in my opinion. So I apologize for that. And also, though, something else that I noticed, now that we're at the end of this video here, this movie is not the only movie that is showing issues with emaciation. It seems to be spreading out across Hollywood again. Ozempic is kind of flying rampant right now, and that is a large factor in many people's journeys with their weight. Perhaps it's being involved here. I do not know. I know that some people that have spoken from experience in EDs have talked about some of the behaviors that they're displaying with their emotional turbulence and inability to have a firm grasp on those emotions was also experienced during times of with their journey in their ED. So maybe, but again, I don't have the skill set for that. I don't feel comfortable morally talking about that beyond what I've done here. Those are the clips that I've gone through. That's my analysis of it. I feel like, if anything, what they're doing is not enormously problematic outside of it might be muddying the clarity for younger generations to understand how to not be codependent. And again, some of the body image stuff around that as well. It strikes me as something feels performative here and faked in a way that I don't super appreciate, but may not actually be too enormously problematic in the grand scope of things. And I think that also does boil around to everybody watching. If it really upsets the people watching, just don't watch it. If it rubs you the wrong way, just go away from it and find somewhere else to be. Take care of your own mental health. And if it's causing you duress, prioritize creating an environment that does not cause you that mental duress. Another thing that I noticed is that these instances that I showed you here, where they're very touchy-feely, emotionally kind of flying off the handle, that sort of thing, it's not everywhere. There are plenty of other interviews where they actually do behave what would be considered like professional and how talent normally behaves when promoting a movie. And so that's another thing to keep in mind, is that if you actually go and you watch the context of the plenty of hours of other interviews, you can see a myriad of moments where they're just behaving like the adults that they are, answering questions well. It's entertaining. It promotes the film. You feel connected to both of them. And there's not this weird, I feel like I'm a fly on a wall for a therapy session that I didn't want to be a part of kind of thing. So let me know your thoughts in the comments of this video. I'm sure that people are going to have opinions, especially in this sort of realm. Everybody always has a lot of opinions, and I'm curious to know, especially because like this isn't my realm of interest. I don't dip my toes into the musical, stage musicals or film musicals often. I don't know a ton about either Ariana or Cynthia. I have been a fan of some of Ariana's music, so I guess that's my shoe-in. But outside of that, I feel like my expertise in nonverbal communication is all that I can add to it. It's not, oh, I've been a fan for decades and I know all the lore sort of thing. So if you know the lore, let me know in the comments of this video, especially if you could do so in a way that's productive to everybody being on the same page and kind of striving forward with this goal of understanding and more information and clarity and things like that. So if you have something like that, let us know in the comments. Also, before wrapping this all up, I want to give a big thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Follow the link in the description or scan the QR code here on the screen and use my code OBSERVE2 to get 55% off your first month. But without further ado, that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan and you have been oh so awesome as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.